It becomes wild when you start digging into this and really realizing like how bad our water quality has become.
So what's your take there?
One of those ways is getting in-home filtration. And you don't have to go super crazy expensive with this, like some people think. If you can afford that and you can get a full home system, that is great. But a lot of times you just need some kind of filtration, at least at your kitchen sink.
I saw you drinking water. I wanted to ask you, what is that?
I found this thing called an ionizer. Basically, what an ionizer is, it adds an abundance of hydrogen to your water too. That's where this product comes from. And basically what it does is it's science replicating nature.
Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and on how we can help. Today, we have Andrew Fisanich speaking about clean water. Andrew, welcome to the show. Let's start with, what are the most pressing water quality issues with tap water in the US? And for the global audience, if you can expand on that in a sense of what falls everywhere, and how do we address this? How do we start with this?
Well, thank you, Ali, for having me on your show. I'm super excited to spread the awareness of this global issue that we do have. But starting with the U.S., some of the biggest factors that we are facing is really the contaminants that are inside our water. A lot of our tap water has contaminants, chemicals. You've heard of like arsenic in our water. A lot of agricultural runoff, industrial pollution. So there's a lot of things that are causing a lot of harm to our bodies. And I'm going to really touch on the fact that if you don't have some sort of filtration, what happens is your body becomes a filter. So you end up consuming all of these chemicals and contaminants, and it's very, very harmful for one's body.
Poisonous, I might say, because some of the words you use are like arsenic. You automatically think it's poison, right? And aside from the stuff you mentioned, I've heard parasites, birth control, and other things like that in purified and tap water. Can what's myth and what's real, basically?
Yeah. So no, you're exactly right. So birth control ends up because a lot of our population, so females are on birth control, and that ends up getting into our water. And a lot of our systems, the way they're set up, filtration systems, and it doesn't take out all the pharmaceuticals. It doesn't take out all the birth control. So a lot of that stuff is still going through and getting into our waterways. And then, yes, of course, things like arsenic, like I mentioned, nitrates, PFAs are a big one. Those are, the forever chemicals. A lot of people are talking about those. Those also are on like Teflon and stuff like that. So it becomes wild when you start digging into this and really realizing like how bad our water quality has become. On top of that, it's also the pipings too. A lot of our pipings are very old, whether they're lead or copper. Now they're doing a lot of plastic, which then leads to a lot of microplastics in our water as well. So it is kind of scary, but I will later in this interview we'll talk about how some ways that you could potentially protect yourself from these issues.
And you touched on microplastics and plastics. Like you say, you see it in the media a lot. Recently, I've been reading on multiple media how I'm actually consuming a credit card a week, so to speak. And you see that a lot through research, and a lot of that comes through water, right? It's not just it's not like I'm eating my food and there's bits of plastics in it. It's very different. Can you share how we're consuming microplastics through water? How does that happen?
Yeah. So no, you're exactly right with the microplastics. A lot of articles are also, and research is coming out with nanoplastics, which are even smaller than microplastics. And yes, we are consuming them. A lot of the ways it gets into our bodies is one of the biggest ways by far is plastic bottled water. So if you're someone that consumes that, we've all been there. I mean, growing up, I would always do that as well. It was just the easiest source, right? It's just convenient. It's there when you need it. It's at the airport. So in our society, it's just such a common thing, and all over the world, really. So that's one of the biggest ways. But on top of that, as you know, like a lot of our food is wrapped with plastic. All these packaging is plastic as well. So those eventually leach into our body. But we have to remember, water is the universal solvent. So it's going to break down anything that it comes in contact with over time. And that includes heavy metals. That includes like our lead and copper piping, but that also includes any kind of plastics that are holding our water, or if it's passing through, like the plastic pipes.
And when you mentioned the pipes and stuff, I mean, we're talking now at the governmental level, right? I mean, this most countries. Well, I don't know of any country in the world that basically leaves, the piping and water and all those things to the market. Essentially, they may contract people to do this, but I mean, at the end of the day, those are governmental projects and infrastructure. Essentially, they fall under infrastructure. So, being that they fall under infrastructure and it's a governmental issue, how do you propose that we can balance a healthier society for ourselves with water? Because we're talking farms, we're talking industries, we're talking drinking water, we're talking the water that runs through your home tap, shower, all those things. It's not just one area. When you think of water, everything relates to water. So is it enough essentially to say we need to use this type of piping, this type of quality, and that's it? It resolves everything, or is it much deeper and much worse?
Yeah, it becomes a much deeper, and like you mentioned, you touched on it, is the infrastructure. So one of the biggest things, and this is at the government level, is we need to bring more awareness um, to really like investing in proper infrastructure for the. I mean, piping system is number one, and making sure that you get your water tested. That's a good way to do it. You can go through that through like your state and ask them for that, and they're required by law to give you your water testing. You can also go to like third party companies as well and get that tested. And there's also some free sites that you can go on too. ewg.org/tapwater is a good one. You can type in your zip code if you're in the US, and it'll tell you exactly what's in your water, and it'll recommend even like filters that you can use. But yeah, it's going to be a slower process. I mean, one, I think it's awareness. Then it's investing in infrastructure. It's investing in, or actually creating more regulation on agricultural, runoff, urban runoff, making sure companies are not polluting our waterways, because eventually, if pollution gets into any kind of body of water, eventually it's going to get recycled, and then we're going to be consuming it in one way or another.
And so, really, the first stage or step is education. So, you know what you're drinking. But what I find is a lot of times people stop at education in a lot of causes, not just clean water, but a lot of things. They say, oh, go educate yourself. Okay. I listen to Andrew and I go on the websites and I educate myself and I find out my water's not clean. Then what? I mean, I have the education, but that's where it stops, right? I have the education. I know I'm drinking bad water. So I may be privileged enough to go and buy bottled water in a glass bottle from a spring or something that's clean. But it's really not a solution, so to speak, because, what do you do for the rest of the water? So at this point, you're speaking advocacy. When you're saying regulations and things like that, government is not going to just get up one morning and say we need to give our people clean water, because that's just not how they work anymore today in this world. They respond to their bosses, and the corporations say, no, we're dumping chemicals in the water. That's how it's going to be. That's how you're going to get voted next round. So, but the power and the vote is with the people. So here, after the education stage, I think what's really lacking is people like yourself and organizations like you to do the advocacy, to not just speak about it, but to advocate for it. And if we have in the US, 20 million, 30 million people saying we want clean water, we're going out there, we're gonna stand up against everything and say we want clean water. I think it's more than sufficient for the government to have to, even if they're not going to do it, the politicians are going to say, you know what, that's 20 million votes right there if I talk about clean water in my next election campaign. because that's what these people
Right.
want. And then, it starts making that change because they respond to the market forces. And I like that you brought that up because advocacy is huge. And I think with education, there is that responsibility to advocate, right? And that's really what I'm trying to do is with Compassiviste. It's kind of like compassion is the education. You're compassionate about something, you're passionate about something, you try to raise the education, but then without the activism, there's no point to your education. I could learn all there is to learn in the universe, but if there's no expression with my learning, it's valueless learning. So I like that you are speaking of that. And that takes us directly to advocacy is environmental issues in this case. I mean, the clean water is a segment of environmental issues. So that being the case, what would you brought up one thing about single-use plastic bottles, and you're right. You go to any supermarket today, most of the water aisle is plastic bottles. I mean, rarely do you see glass, and rarely do people buy glass because, again, the affordability issue. I think if the government wants to help there, one of the things they should do is subsidize or use methodologies such as some countries in Europe where you get your bottled water and you can exchange them for certain rate and the glass goes and you pick up another ones. And we don't have a lot of these in North America. I mean, I rarely see these kind of programs, right? So what's your take there? I mean, are we just backwards in terms of, I mean, San Francisco, just up the street from you is really the mecca of tech, but then technology in a sense in these kind of health ways is so far behind in the US when you go and you travel and you see the rest of the world and how they're trying to alleviate these problems. So what's your solution to the American problem of water?
Yeah, it's crazy because as we know, business and it's all about profits, right? So obviously, creating plastic bottled water or these containers to hold water is a lot cheaper and more affordable for these companies, and they can turn a bigger profit
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the glass. But if you look back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everything was glass. It was
Mm-hmm.
actually really cool to see grocery stores complete, your milk, your water, whatever was all glass. And at that point, you could even you'd be fine drinking tap water. There's a lot more regulations and maintained. So with the single use plastic, I think we need to it's got to be a collective mission to really solve this issue. And if you just go down the list of all the things that are happening because of this, things like birth defects, things like it disrupts your endocrine system and your hormones. And we're seeing this I mean, there's studies done on frogs that where their gender was changed when they were exposed to tap water. So clearly that's on on a smaller section, but if you that's eventually going to affect our human population, our human bodies. And then on top of that, you have all of the plastic that's going into the oceans too. I think it's something like 8 or 9 million million tons of plastic. Plastic is going into our ocean every day, and then we have these, they call them like oceans or trash islands, where they're just like floating in the middle of the oceans, right? So the solution is I mean, one, with our votes for sure. Two is like how we spend our money too. I know there is the convenience of getting bottled water, but how can you maybe, um, you know, do your research, but also look for certain solutions that are going to protect you and also be cost effective. So one of those ways is getting in-home filters, in-home filtration. And you don't have to go super crazy expensive with this. Like some people think you don't need like a full home. If you can afford that and you can get a full home system, that is great. But a lot of times you just need some kind of filtration, at least at your kitchen sink, because that's going to be something that, well, one, you're going to drink, but two, you can wash your produce with, you're going to cook with, and wash your dishes and stuff like that. You're just going to be contacting your skin. So there are like affordable ways that you can get, at least, like I say, like the starter pack. That's going to be better than like a Brita. Brita, it is what it is. It could take out some chlorine, maybe some heavy metals, very very few, but at least it's something. But how can you make that investment that's a little bit more, but it's going to just protect you and really start eliminating all this plastic that we're using.
So on the personal level, which we'll get into now, it's taking certain steps, and on the collective and public level is really advocacy and shifting the market with your dollars as the collective. Because if everybody walks into Walmart and says we're only buying the glass and they run out of the glass bottles, then guess what, they're calling Nestle up and they're saying, hey Nestle, you need to send the glass ones because you can come pick up your leftover plastic ones because they're not going on sale. We dropped them to 10 cents and they're still not going on sale. So Nestle will have to reconsider their strategy and say, well, this is what it is. We're looking for profits. We're going to shift what we're doing. And it'll even reduce the price of bottle because a lot of people are buying. It's going to be cheaper to produce in mass and so forth and so forth. Now, on the personal level, home filtration for the wealthy. Yes, very easy. I've also heard people use, Fiji and Evian water to shower in. That's great for the wealthy, but 99 point something percent of the population don't have those options. So for the population who don't have those options, when you're talking about invest in devices that give you filtration. And like you said, most importantly, the kitchen sink. And I think second most importantly, the shower, because that's, full contact with your whole body. So, what are the costs of things like that, just off top of your head? Because, if you say, you're looking at $3,500, I know a lot of viewers will just, turn off this channel and go somewhere else. But if you turn around and say something like, it's only this much, and you look at the longevity of it, you get 5 years use out of it, it's only $100, a different story. So what are we talking about here? And how hard is the installation?
Yeah. And I actually, with the filters that you get at home, there are cost-effective ones where it's going to maybe be a couple $100. Now there are so many options. Like you can go on Amazon and see a bunch of them. You can Google these, and you're like, which one is good? And unfortunately, as we know, products are products. So they say they take out this, but they and these contaminants, but they might actually not do that. So one of the things that I stand by is making sure that your filter is NSF approved. So if they have that certification, if they're approved, that means they're actually like registered water filter.
What is NSF?
A lot. So it's basically an organization, and they go around and basically test these filters and make sure that they do what they say they do, basically.
So a third-party verification organization, and you want to make sure that it has an NSF stamp on it somewhere when you buy it. It doesn't matter what brand it is, but that's what you look for, basically. Okay.
That's what you look for. Yes, it's definitely look for that, and that goes with your filtration for your sink or your tap water, or for the shower unit as well, because there's some good ones out there. There's some bad ones out there. You just don't want to spend your money and then it's not really doing anything, or
exactly,
or it's not going to last very long. So yeah, that's what I would definitely recommend is starting off with that. And you can find that for affordable, couple $100.
Yeah, and that gives you a long time.
Yeah. Usually it's about a year.
Okay.
I mean, maybe down the line, like one day we'll have funding that will be like, oh, here's your, here's some money to actually be able to go out and afford that too. That'd be very nice. But
each state can put it into their budget and say, you know what, we're at dangerous toxic levels of water. We need to give all our people this machine that we contracted with XY company that is an NSF approved company, and every household gets one, and you can turn it into this location every 2 years and get a new one. How hard is that?
That'd be amazing.
I don't think it's that hard, right? But we know the state's not going to do that, which is why this is the conversation I have quite often, which is why there are charities in the world, and which is why there are all these support systems in the world and NGOs. The reason these places exist is not because it's part of our structure. It's because there's a lack of responsibility and accountability on the part of the people who have taken this job on in the first place. So, the government is supposed to supply you with good water. I mean, that's part of the contract, I think, when you vote. Don't kill me, right? I mean, give me clean water to drink. Don't give me poison. So now comes Andrew and says they're not doing that. So, automatically you're like, okay, I'm going to go figure this out and get my clean water. And then you realize you can't get your clean water because you're just too weak in the system to fight for that. What do? You turn to Andrew and you say, hey, Andrew, I tried. It didn't work. What do I do now? Andrew says, well, I knew it wouldn't work, so I set up a charity, and here's your filtration system, and we go home and everybody has one. And I think that helps the problem too, in a sense, because then the government knows it's okay. Every time there's an issue that we don't take care of, some good Samaritan is going to get up for the good of the people and do the good, right? So it hurts me that we have to build these foundations, because that's not what it's supposed to be. But now here we are, we're at this position. That's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for, more people to come together, and more people to, the wealthier population can share a little bit, and basically allow everybody in the state and everybody globally to be able to have some sort of clean water. Now, tell me, I saw you drinking water earlier, and I wanted to ask you, what is that? What? So we know. I mean, if Andrew's drinking it, it's good. How do you source that?
Yeah. So there are levels to. I say there's like levels to the water game.
Right.
You can if you really want to dive deep and really get the best water you can get. What you want to get, and we were talking about this before the podcast started, is spring water, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of us don't live around spring water, and I hate to say it, but a lot of the pollution, and really we're like ruining the soil, which then gets into the runoff gets into spring water too. So now you have to be careful even about spring water and make sure it's not high in certain contaminants. But what I drink is I start with the pre-filter, just like I was recommending, is get a pre-filter at home. It takes out the contaminants, but ideally you want to have one that keeps the minerals, because water has certain minerals in it that are very healthy for you. Yeah. So you have magnesium, potassium, sodium. So ideally you want to keep that stuff. And then what I've also, once I started diving deep into the water thing, I found this thing called an ionizer. And then what an ionizer is it adds an abundance of hydrogen to your water too. So people are talking about it more and more about hydrogen and hydrogen rich water, which again is the next step up. I'm not saying you have to do this, but if you really want the best water, or if you're maybe dealing with some health issues, like you're chronically dehydrated, which a lot of people are, maybe you have certain autoimmune diseases and you want to go more holistic with your health, this is a good opportunity, or a good thing to maybe look into for yourself. And basically what the machine that I use after it gets filtered is medical grade, and it comes from Japan. Company's been around for 50 years. And it comes from Okinawa, which is one of the blue zones too. So
right.
One of those places where
you'll live to be 100.
Longest. Yeah. Centenarians. I think I'm saying that right.
Centenarians.
Yeah. So that's where this product comes from. And basically what it does is it's science replicating nature. So it's the closest thing that you can get to spring water, because one, it keeps all the minerals. Two, it has an abundance of hydrogen, which is basically just an antioxidant, very powerful antioxidant.
Right.
And if you go to spring water, that's exactly what it has too. Spring water has minerals, it has hydrogen, and it's slightly alkaline too. Usually, anywhere between like 8 to like 9.7 pH on the alkalinity. So that's another thing too. And we, studies have shown too that basically cancer and other disease can't live in an alkaline state. So unfortunately, a lot of us are acidic from the food we eat, whether it's processed food, water, soda, alcohol. A lot of these things are even meat, even though I love meat, but you just have to have something where it can counterbalance and kind of bring you back to homeostasis. And that's kind of what this machine does.
Okay. What is the name of the machine?
It's from this company called Enagic, and it's called a Kangen water machine.
We better put that down there, because I don't think I can spell that. But but for everybody to kind of get a hold of this, so that's what you trust. That's what I'm trying to get at. That after all your research, after all the findings, what was the reason you picked this? I mean, you're using it, but why do you use this versus everything else? What was it that really got you to say this is the one?
Yeah, honestly, I started diving deep into this water research, and I was really looking for the best option initially for myself, but also for my clients, because I've been in the health and wellness and fitness space for such a long time. So I was like, okay, what is I've always looking for the best, workout program, also the best nutrition plan. And there's so many different ones, but what is like, I want to live optimally. And I was always looking for the best thing. So that's what kind of led me down this path. And I found out that, again, going back to the blue zones, in a lot of these blue zones, they have places where, and there's like photos of it too, where you can go and fill up water,
Yes.
and it's supposed to have like these healing benefits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of like,
Yeah,
there's
I've
in
been to,
Mexico?
yeah, I've been
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Mexico and Italy, to both of those places, and I've seen, and their lifestyle is so different too. I mean, the movement that they have as well, that adds to it, and the lack of pollution, and you just don't want to leave once you get to
Yep.
those places. They're just so like mellow and lovely and beautiful, and yeah, you make me want to go back there. But
Yeah.
so basically, um, you saw that this water is replicating, the best case scenario more than anything else. This filtration system of the water is replicating the best case scenario, so you stuck with that. Fair enough. So that's the
Yeah.
one everybody needs
Exactly.
to get,
Yeah.
and it comes from a lot of research,
Yeah.
and your background in health, right? I mean, you're in the health and
Yeah.
wellness stage, and all of that. So it's not like we're speaking to a butcher who is now advocating for water. We're speaking with someone who actually, is hardcore into all this stuff. So yeah, I'll take your advice.
Yes. Yep.
Exactly. Okay. And now
Yeah.
you talked about ionization, and to
Yes.
clear a lot of the misunderstanding there, recently there's been a lot of talk about ionization in the air, though not so much in the water. I mean, you buy a car these days and they have ionizers. You buy air conditioning units and they have ionizers, right? There's all these things. What's water ionization versus what we normally hear about in air ionization?
Yeah, water ionization is essentially when the water goes through this machine, this device. It's basically using electricity, and it goes through this process called electrolysis. But I mean, just a fancy word for saying an electrical process. So the machine does have to be plugged in. So when the water goes through this through these plates and it gets basically electrified, it adds a negative ions and negative ions to the water. So it's very kind of similar. Like you mentioned, air. Another thing is like ionization or negative ions come from grounding too. Grounding, putting your feet on the earth's soil. The earth is very it's negatively charged. So when you put your feet on sand or dirt, ground, any kind of earth is soil, you get those negative ions and you feel better, right? So that's essentially what's going on too with this water. And again, this naturally, it's not like a new thing. It's naturally occurs in nature. So when the water, one of the ways is when the water goes, spring water goes down the mountains and runs over the rocks. It's collecting minerals as it goes down, and also even from electricity in the air, as in like literal actual like lightning. When lightning hits a body of water, it's an ionization process too. So what basically this company did, the one that I've been talking about from Japan, they just bottled it in. They're like, how can we create a device that has that, and like you can just have it in your home, basically.
Literally what you said earlier, which I'm understanding better now. They took nature and put it in a box for water,
Exactly.
because that's what it is too. Like
Hmm.
when you just said the lightning, now I'm thinking, if I ever see lightning hit the water, I start drinking, because that's good water right there. But essentially, that's what they
Yeah.
did. They
Nice.
took nature and built it into that. So okay, now we get it. Um, the world needs clean water, and not just drinking water. I mean, just clean water. Washing hands, shower, washing clothes, washing dishes. So many reasons we need clean water. Um, the one really cool aspect, and this is digressing a little, but is that the water we have is the water we've had forever, since the earth formed and the waters came and were there and everything, and it just filters. It's been filtering for what, 5 billion years now, and take back the last, I guess, 100 years. We've lived very kind of sustainably with nature, And so nature was able to provide us clean water continuously, no matter what happened. There was always, like you said, the spring water, the river just cleansed everything. And now, in the last 100 years, with the forever chemicals and the capitalistic view of our unsustainable world, it's impossible. We don't have clean water anymore. It's just deteriorating, and it's getting worse. I mean, you're having this conversation now. I'm sure there were people in the 70s having this conversation, and really nothing happened, and it just got worse and worse, and it's just going to get worse. So, that being the case, how do we make it um, easier for people to be able to have clean water? Because it seems like it's just getting worse. I mean, is there a solution? Have you thought that far? You've thought about the machine. You've thought about what I can
Yeah.
do inside
Yeah.
my house. But have you really given a thought about how do we get people clean water?
Yeah. No, it's crazy because, like you touched on, the world has changed so much, and like going back to Europe, they really have done a really good job with the aqueducts and stuff like that. Was such a great way to get clean water down to the city, whatever, Rome or different places. And we went away from that for some reason, and we went into this water treatment facilities where a lot of times we're stripping the water completely of all of its like natural benefits that we need. I mean, we need water to survive, and we've treated it and added chemicals like chlorine and fluoride and all these things which are not beneficial. And then on top of that, we have, like you mentioned, when we shower in it too, our skin's our largest organ. Anything we come in contact with, it's going to absorb. So there's a lot of issues going on, and I think when I think about kind of a solution is I think one of the things is going to be like charity work, kind of like we were mentioning. I think nonprofits, private organizations, really leading the charge, and there are a few ones out there that I've looked into, um, and they're giving clean water. They're getting clean water to a lot of people that are much less fortunate than the people in the U.S. or people that are well off. One of those is charity water. That's a big one.
Yes.
I know they're. Have you heard of that
Yeah,
one? I
I've
know
heard of
they're a
them. Yeah,
global.
they're very huge. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, huge.
Okay.
Very transparent. I know
Yes.
they add a lot of all of their funds. They show you that it's going
Mm.
to building treatment centers and so forth, and all over the globe. So that's one of the things I think. Yeah, I think it's going to have to be at a state level. But what can you do as like your own person, as an
By the
individual
Japanese
is like,
machine.
is have pre-filter. Yeah, and then if you want to upgrade even more, then dive into that as well.
Right. And so basically, we come back to the point where we need to take things into our own hands and look into the right charities and support them and try to be involved and try to create communities where we can help each other to essentially find clean water again, because that's the best case scenario. Now, you're very passionate about clean water, and it's a big part of your life. And I'm sure, with your own friends and in your own circles, you have all this advice to give continuously about clean water and all of that. And
Yeah.
you post about it, you talk about it, you're an advocate for it. I have one personal question for you that would relate to myself here. Is what I do is I try to find passionate people about good causes, whatever the good cause it may be. I mean, it doesn't have to be water, it could be anything. But when I do find them, I always ask them, why don't you write a book about it? And the reason I ask that is not for the book itself, but I find, manuals and books are still the best long form way of processing information for us. Content is beautiful. You have short content, and there are these snippets of moments where you can educate people through infographics, through Instagram and other kinds of social media and stuff. But when people get really deep into a book, because a couple of times when you answered some of the questions I asked, and you said, well, I did deep dive. And so
Mhm.
there isn't enough time for you to open up that deep dive on any Instagram post or any social media post. But there is enough space for you to show people that deep dive. Because when I feel when people know the deep dive, when they're educated like you were into the deep dive, that's when they make the change. That's where they're like, wow, I had no clue. Because we're so contaminated these days that when you say, I had a friend, I was on a call with her recently, and she was holding a plastic bottle, and she was drinking from it. And, she knows it's bad for her, but she's drinking from it. And I wonder if it got to the point where she had access to the deep dive, if she would put that water in her system, for many reasons, for child birth and
Right.
defects and stuff, and other reasons, not just the possibility that you may get cancer, because when we're young, like, nobody's getting cancer. That's your thought. You're invincible, and when you're 70, you start 60, you're starting to worry about cancer and things like that. But people just don't understand the total picture. So when I ask you about a book, that's what I really mean. I mean, when you write a book and it's got chapters and I can read it and I can say, wow, this is how my child can be born with defects, which can be totally prevented, totally, like, not even a question, only by using this metric or only by changing my life in this way. That makes the difference between a book and social media for me.
Yes. Yeah, it's so powerful. And you do bring up a really good point, because I mean that's where I love sitting down, reading a book, and I agree, it's still, I think, the best way to really digest information and get super educated on things. And a lot of my research has come from that.
Exactly. Your
Um,
deep dive was
yeah.
through books, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good books that I could recommend, but also, you know, turning it around to really thinking about what I can do. You got me thinking about that, and I think, down the line, I think it would be a great thing to put kind of my perspective on it, and like what
Right.
I've learned, and add in the peer review, because I've also dove deep into PubMed peer reviewed
Mm,
studies on different water and
right.
the health and the risk and all that stuff.
And I think it's a service. It's a service you're doing because you have this host of research right now in your head, in your paperwork, in your computer, like scattered around your house. But if you were to compile that and give it to us, we'll be glad to pay you, the book fee, so to speak, because that's not a capitalist thing for me. That's a trade-off. Here's a person who's taken so much time out of their life and they've gone out and they've done the research for us. They're one of us. They're honest. They weren't paid by some big publishing company to write some jargon, or a lot of unfortunately science is like that today too. It comes from whoever pays you best or whoever pays the grant for your study or whatever. And so you're coming here honest, you're speaking it. So Compassiviste has many tentacles. We're an octopus formation. One of the tentacles is Compassiviste Publishing, and we publish this kind of work. We publish all sorts of things, but it has to have some kind of value and passion behind it. So you have that passion, right? We publish this, and we're nonprofit publishers, as the whole, everything Compassiviste is nonprofit. It's for the public, and so I'm thinking, Andrew writes the book, we publish the book, people learn about what's going on, we build the proceeds of the book into a foundation where we can help people have access to your Japanese machine. We reach out to them, we say, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Give us a rate that it can be feasible for everybody to have this machine. Great, let's bring tons of this machine over, and let's make sure it's sustainable, it's well made in terms of that it also supports sustainable formation, because you also don't want to buy a machine that cleans your water but then destroys you in some other way. So once all of this is approved, right, we bring this and we try to give it to people. I think just that's a starting point of something. The book becomes the starting point of the whole state of California, for example, potentially one day having clean water because of this one book, the education of this one book, right? So I think if you kickstart the campaign from there, I'd be more than happy to publish it. I'd be more than happy to build the cause for it on Compassiviste Foundation, which really is the same crowd. It's our audience. Our audience here is our group of activists there. It's our readers over there. It's the people who engage with us all throughout our systems. So I'd really want you to do that. Give it a thought. Now,
Yeah. Well, you got
yeah,
you sold me on
yeah,
it.
no, I'm serious. You see what I mean?
Love
Like
what you're doing.
it's the education. If I can get people like you to provide, their passion and connect, we can build a whole. And I think this whole becomes so much more powerful because you have the capacity to write your book, you have the capacity to find a publisher, you have the capacity to start a nonprofit. Those are all not hard. I mean, your cause will get you a 501c3, no problem. Nobody's going to question you and say, oh, I don't know if this falls into the, no, you're going to get it right away. So now, but then you're going to be your own organization only doing this. Now, imagine if you and other people in the health industry and other industries collaboratively are working together as a collective with so many causes that within a household, all of these causes together help make that household as healthy as possible. Because I could buy the
Right.
machine from you
Yeah.
after this call. After this talk, I'm an audience now. I'm listening, and I say, "Wow, this was amazing. I'm going to go buy this machine." Click, go buy it. And mind you, we're not getting a penny from this sale. I wish I knew this before. But the point is, we buy the water, but then we go and bring McDonald's into our home and eat it with this water. So that's a pain
Yeah.
point right there, right?
Yeah.
You want to kind of build it all together. And I think if we bring all those forces together into a foundation and kind of focus on a healthier human, that becomes the goal.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for the book. That's what I'm waiting for now.
Yeah.
Changing gears from the book and not putting so much pressure on you. um,
No, I love it though. I love it. Yeah.
okay. Now, tell me how people can learn in the meantime more about what you're doing, your social media, websites, charities you're involved with, or anything you want to share with the audience so that they can get on more of a clean water aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll throw in some of my handles. So on Instagram, it's at Andrew_Fisanich, his first name underscore Fisanich. If you want to reach out to me through email and you just want to, if you have some questions, more than happy to respond to people and get them all the information they need. That's andrewfisanich@gmail.com. And then also I have a specific social media just for the water content, and that is called at the Awakening, and that's on Instagram as well and on Facebook too. And the Awakening is kind of like a name we came up with where, and it's 2Ks, so Awakening with 2Ks, but just because we really want to wake people up to the problems with our water, some solutions, and really like you kind of touched on it where when you start changing your life and you want to get healthier, and I'm really into optimizing myself as well, but water I think is one of the foundations because it becomes the catalyst to really like upgrading your entire life and just getting healthier, and not eating the McDonald's and maybe going to the gym a little bit more. But once you're feeling hydrated, your brain is hydrated, you're not as tired. I've seen so many shifts in people's lives when they do like a 180 and they were going down a bad path and they've readjusted and then started adding in all these good things into their life and started working on their nutrition and working out more. So yeah, so we awaken people up to this water. As for charities, I mentioned Charity Water is one of them. What the other one? I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's very similar. Okay, it's the Water Project. So the Water
Okay.
Project is
Yes,
another one,
I've
and
heard of
that
that one.
one, yeah, that one's more for in Africa, but
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
create they build wells and they
Yeah,
treatment
we
centers
do
and
we
stuff
do
like that
work
for
in Africa
farmers.
as well on a different project, and I've seen their work across.
They're
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
fair enough.
So yeah, Charity Water is the global one, and then the Water Project is another one. And in terms of like how you get your hands on some filter, well, you can reach out to me if you want to go with the hydrogen rich ionizer, and I can get you all set up with that. If you want to look for more of like a starter, I would look at ewg.org/tapwater, and then also look at ionfaucet.com as a great place to start to just get something. They have shower units. They have just affordable pre-filters too. Again, a couple $100 to get your get you in the right direction.
Now, off topic and on topic at the same time. I know you have a dog, and dogs drink
Yeah.
water. So, just on a
Hmm.
side note, how do you make that connection there? What do you do for your dog?
Yes. Oh, wait, and I've seen drastic improvements in her health too. I was
Okay,
telling you
tell
earlier,
me a little
she's
bit about
our
that.
dog's
Yeah,
13 years old. Yeah.
there
I
she
think it's kind of
is.
cool. They've done a study. She heard her name. They've done a study where they've actually like put out tap water, and
Hmm.
dogs' senses are much
Yes,
higher than ours.
yes.
So they put out tap water in a bowl, and then our water filtered,
Yes,
ionized water,
and
and the
and they
dog
went
always
there. I
goes
know, I know. I've seen those.
yes.
Yeah, I've
Yep.
seen those
You've seen stuff like
because
that. Yeah.
they sense it,
Yeah.
right?
Because they can
Even
smell.
even with food, right? I mean, you give them clean, raw, quality food, and then you give them kibble from God knows where, and the dog's just like zoom right
Yeah.
to the good food, right? So
Yep.
I sense that. So do you
Hmm.
give your dog the same water you drink? I mean, the same filter, the same setup, or
Yeah.
do you switch it around?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. So I actually, because our machine, the one thing I didn't talk about was you can actually change the pH levels
Yes.
of the water just by touching a button. So I normally drink 9.0 to 9.5 pH, and it's just a higher alkalinity, and that's what just I prefer. But for my dog, we give her either 7.0 or 8.0. So it's neutral to slightly acidic, and that's what seems like the best thing for her. It's kept her healthy and moving around and still spry at 13 years old. So I definitely recommend
Right.
getting good water. Same thing with food. Like you need good food for your dogs.
Right.
Ideally like something raw or something the as less processed as possible. And the
Yes.
same thing goes for your water too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it's important because what is it? Almost half of the U.S. and even Canada and a lot of other countries have pets at home, and I'm always shocked at people who they'll go out, and I mean this is a member of your family as far as I'm concerned, and they go out and they you
Right.
know drink, they worry about their own health, and then when it comes to the dog it's whatever water's available, tap water, whatever, and then or the garden hose water, and then the dog gets sick, and they're like, oh, this dog is always sick. And no, the dog's not always sick, you are always making the dog sick. So I wanted to ask you, what do you
Yeah.
give the dog? So yeah, if you have a dog at home,
Yeah.
get the filtration, put it at 7 to 7.5, and use that for the dog. And the settings, like you said, I've seen a few of those. And you're right, it's very easy. At a press of a button, you can make it different.
Hmm. Absolutely. We got to take care of our pets just like that. Like they are a family member too, for sure.
Exactly. And now, aside from all of this, you have a website, and on the website, your whole appeal with the water is kind of like a movement. It's uh, it's more than just an educational, drink good water. What is your, optimally, what do you want to achieve with your movement, so to speak? With your movement to clean water, with your movement to good water, what's the change that you're trying to make in people?
Yeah, we really want to create that impact. I think it starts with water. It starts with, having a great source. One of the things is just like investing in yourself and being able to say like, okay, I'm worthy of of this. I'm
Right.
worthy. Like we don't bat an eye to spend money on a car or going out to eat and drinks and stuff like that. But what about, have you ever like put that investment into yourself? So it's really, yeah, giving people kind of a platform to invest in themselves. It starts with water, but also like we do kind of appeal to like a lifestyle too, where you're living
Yes.
this healthy lifestyle. And yeah, and we have people from all walks of life, all different ages. A lot of people like on there maybe look a little bit younger, but it's because they're just full of energy, they're full of life. We kind of are creating like this collective where we like to work out together. We do like events. If you guys are ever in Orange County, California area, we do that. We do like meetups all the time, and we
Hmm.
even do like meetups where we clean up plastic from like an ocean cleanup, right? So we're just trying to create like just a group of people that want better things out of life and want to don't want to just know the information, but actually want to take action on it too.
Right.
And
And
so it's
that's
one
the
thing
important part.
like we
Yeah.
talked about.
Yeah. The action's the most
Yeah,
important
yeah,
part. You're right. So health by
yeah.
water with Andrew Fisanich and his team. That's the theme here. Start with healthy water.
That's right.
And you're absolutely right. I
Yep.
see so often people walking around with excessive spending on their clothes and other things that really don't matter as much, and then they're shopping the aisles for the cheaper water, and you think to yourself, well,
Yeah.
do you want your kidney to go while you're wearing Gucci, or would you rather, not wear the Gucci and have your kidney? That's the balance. And, and
Right,
when you ask them
right.
that while they're standing in front of you looking that way, it's kind of, oh, I should think about my priorities, right? That's the idea. So thank
Yep.
you. Yeah, that
Yep.
was lovely. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
This was amazing. We learned so much from your talk, and we're definitely going to have a part two with the book, with the education, and trying to get this movement really going into the activism space, because education is only half the story. I encourage everyone tuned
Yes.
in to visit Andrew's social media and website. And by the way, please visit his website. It's really nicely done. I loved it. It was a really cool website. Subscribe to our
Thank you.
podcast and share with all your friends, and tell them all about the clean water and for their pets. Follow us on social media. We're here to help change the world with people like Andrew and other activists looking to make the world a better place. I'm Ali Horiat. Thank you.